Hi Anne, thank you for both of your video links. I am now starting to do your assessment, and I'm going to try and get both videos done on the one assessment video, but it's likely that I'll do them in two separate ones. Sometimes technically there are things that can go wrong. As you know from your Pixum, there's all sorts of technical issues to think about these days. So I'm going to have a look at that first one, have a look at what you say here, and then go to the video as usual. So you're looking with Lukas. It's lovely to see him again in the transitions to begin with, and also in the turn on the forehand. And you note that the turn on the forehand is not commonly used in the Netherlands, and you find it difficult. You do very well, actually. It's something that most people get problems with. I think because it's quite hard, you're inside with the horse, you're really close up, so to see it on video is actually very helpful. So it's good that you're doing the tests and that you're doing this assessment, because I think it helps you to see it as an onlooker and get a feel for it, which is hard when you're close up. It's much more used in the Baroque style, and even then there are people that don't see its value, but for me personally, I see a great value in it, because it's a way of early on developing softness and fluidity in the bend while encouraging that inside hind leg. It's a great precursor to shoulder in, for instance, where you can use it at the beginning of the long side and then move directly into a few steps of shoulder for, shoulder in as you're starting with your new green balanced horse, and then you can go directly from 3 or 4, 5 steps of shoulder in to another moving turn on the forehand. Same when you're teaching the travers. It's just a really nice rebalancing, flexing type of exercise. I've seen it done very poorly, and it isn't at all, and maybe that's why people haven't liked it in the past, but for me I think it's a really useful exercise. Anyway, you wanted to show what goes wrong, but Lukas did it very well. I've had a little look, and I can give you some hints to make it even better. And I know that's what you're looking at, the really fine detail on all these things. So let's go and have a look and see what we can detect from watching the video. Okay, so here we have... Okay, so one thing I'm just going to note on that little first area is how much your left hand and that whip is moving as you're going, and I'm not sure whether you intend that to be happening. So just be aware if you're going to carry the whip, which I don't see you using it and I don't see you having a need for it, but anyway, if you are going to use it, just be careful it's not, inadvertently cueing, aiding while you're moving yourself. But I love the fluency in that trot, lovely rhythmical trot steps. I think he's got nice balance, his hocks are flexing well. In the transition down, let's have another return to that. Yeah, nice balance. The only thing I'm going to say is I think you could just move the balance between your right and left shoulder there. Let's get another colour up. And change it a little bit so that your right shoulder would say here and your left shoulder here. And it just opens up a deeper channel, I think, between you here, which allows a little more for that right shoulder of Lukas's to come through a little better. They're, again, minute here, but I just think it would be a really helpful little thing for you just to allow, as he steps into that transition, that last moment that you're expecting the hindquarters to step into parallel tracks with the forefeet, that if you're not careful, you just have a tiny block of that right shoulder, and then he won't be able to bring those hinds in directly. Lovely feeling of shoulder in there, and into shoulder in the hold, which was absolutely super and pretty much square and pretty much soft. I think you're careful towards the end. If you look early on, where are we? Perhaps a little earlier than that even. So nice and light, yeah, good. Yeah, absolutely perfect. Your hand is up and light and carried. So I have no issue with the where you're carrying the inside rein. There's a lovely balance into your outside. And what I love is, look at this. It's the mirroring of posture. He's up through his shoulder and you're up, you know, your head's nice and up in your carriage. There's just this lovely proudness between the two of you. I remember when you first started this, you were struggling to relax in the rein hold, and you were struggling to keep up with him, but you're looking so fantastically balanced together now, and that's really good to see. So there, I'm not certain what your cue was to go then, whether it was a verbal one, but it took a little time. And I think he lost a little straightness, again, as me being very fussy. So here we are in the halt, very nice. You go to cue him and he lost the balance in the softness in his neck. So I think you could tighten up that transition just a little bit. And I'd almost have him sitting there waiting. Is it going to be rein back? Is she going to turn me directly? So that's another thing that I like to do just to keep things interesting. I'll just, you know, open my inside rein a fraction and ask for them to turn directly right. So there's hardly a thought of going forwards, but it's into that turn directly. It just has the horse thinking, well, what do I need to pick out of this? If 9 out of 10 times you walk on from halt, then you're going to get a lot of walking on. If 9 out of 10 times he looks to the outside and then walks on, that's what you're going to keep getting. So just be careful what you're asking for and what you're getting, and be very aware of that, and just have him listening a little more so that he's like, okay, I'm balanced. Is she going to ask me to step back or to the side or walk forwards? What's going to happen here? So just being a little bit aware of that. But once he's into the trot, super lovely, up through the base of the neck, lovely energy. You allowed him through a little more on that open end. Just be aware on the open end when he, come on to some more pens, when he comes round, say, this part of the circle, just be careful that he isn't then flying out his quarters. So he finds it hard. By the time he gets to here, his quarters are, you know, just finding it hard to stay on the line. So again here, by the time they come to here, they're a little off the line. Then when he gets onto the track, obviously he's got the wall that supports the outer hip and outer shoulder, which keeps him into a little more line. A little exercise you can play around with as you come into that corner, straighten his head and neck a little, even have him look a fraction to the outside, a little away from your right hand. And that can really help the balance and in that. But obviously he's moving quite quickly at that point, so I think the potential to have maybe a 2 or 3 meter rope. This goes back a little bit again. I know it took me ages to get you perfectly with those 2 reins and happy with that, but maybe 1 or 2 sessions here and there where you have the ability to, say, work up close, couple of transitions, rein back, really have him on his hocks, and then you have perhaps that ability to let him go into, I mean, even maybe at liberty, to just take some really powerful steps forward to really get his back working and him to allow things to happen through his body would be a good thing. I'm not saying go back to working on a head collar and just a single rope, but you know, just have a think about how you might approach that. So going forwards, super transition, and he gets a deserved sweetie. On the other rein. Again, there's nothing wrong with that transition, is there? Look at that. Let's go back a little further than that. Nothing wrong with it. But it's just a little, you know, oh, I'm going to, but not yet. It's just going to take me a minute to get there. So I think the level that he's at now, we could be looking at a much sharper transition. So again, in the walk, whether you're in walk or halt, it doesn't matter, is what might she ask me to do now? I have to have my body prepared. What should I do? And I noticed as well a little bit in that one, if you look over his back, he just looked a little bit, I have to come back further for it than that. Yeah, he just doesn't look like he's using the whole of his back here. There seems to be a little gap in that transition, which you can possibly detect by the fact that his hinds are both a little out and not coming, you know, not feeling as if they're pushing up, they're pushing him forwards in it. So it's more about the transition, shorter period of trot in that one, so you might take him back to halt, rein back, walk on, trot, 2 steps, walk, halt, trot 2 steps. So it really shortening him up and keeping him really on his game and get the finesse in that transition. Here, I love this. I love the transition into this shorter trot. Can you see how already, though, just in that sort of preparation, as it were, for the half steps, that left hind is looking a little stiff, finding it a little difficult to come under. Yeah, okay, so be careful with that, what I said earlier about having the long rope, so that he can go from that work into some really nice stretchy work. Or if you don't want to do that, you can just have him go forwards to walk and allow him into the longer frame, so that he gets that chance to supple over his back. But that really showing very nice signs here. Very nice. I'd just like to see that left hind a little more supple, that's all. Nice transition. And again, it just looks, he doesn't look as fired up and interested by it as I think he could. I think he could look really, let's come again. So yeah, I mean, the ears are going nicely, but I just would like to see him, the camera does its little moment there, but it finally got you. I would just like to see that neck a little softer. I'd like him to see him a little prouder and a little more, oh, what's next? So that he has that ability to use his body to its best all the time. So maybe, I say, having moments of doing something else for him on that longer rein would be helpful, or just using the food rewards in a more targeted manner. So, walk, trot, yeah, feed, walk, trot, yes, feed, so that he's getting that mark of whatever I'll use a click, but if you wanted to use a word, so that you sense that surge of energy up in the transition, and yes, that's what I wanted, and he knows exactly what it is, rather than it being a period of work, oh, and I just get a sweetie at the end of it. Just a thought, anyway. Love the balance in the transition, in the halt there. Yeah, here I can really sense those hind legs starting to flex and come under him. And I think that, again, I'd just like to see him sitting down a little more, but that's going to come. Don't push that. It's really nice to see these transitions at the moment. I'm really happy with them. And there he gets his just reward. So here we go into the moving turn on the forehand. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, just in even that little tiny element there, is to get us to have a look at a really important part, and that is here. Okay, so I would say that that is roughly the size of circle that I'd like to see his forefeet moving on. So have a think about that now as I put the camera on. Missed it. Sorry, let's come back here. That's it, okay. So I think it's easy to see that this left hind doesn't move at all. So the whole idea with the moving turn on the forehand, or the turn on the forehand, is that the front feet pick up. It's not that they are the crossing legs, it's that they do have motion rather than pivot, because that can be a bit difficult for your horse. So what I want you to think about is more forwards in this. Okay, so the hind legs were fantastic. See, sorry, I've missed that. I forgot to mention at all what was happening with your hind legs for you. Hang on, let's get back to the place where we started. Is that it there? Yeah. No, just a little bit earlier. Here we go. Okay, so here we go. The hinds. So lovely, look at that left hind stepping under. But because the 4 feet didn't move forward, did you see where the left hind ended up in relation to the right hind? It had nowhere to go. The movement had to stop at that point because he met his right hind. So in keeping the, let's do some drawing, in keeping these moving forwards on a circle, then you have the ability for this to come forwards a little and this to come forwards and find a gap in between somewhere. So really think about having that forwards movement. So, sweetie for that one. And yeah, I know you were filming and we're very aware of being, you know, get things done, but he really enjoys that food. Just let him chew it and digest it and think, you know, oh, I enjoyed that. Right, I'm ready to go. One thing that I often do is find what I call the horse's yes. And that is when the horse says to me, I'm ready to go again. And for most horses, we have to be quite businesslike. We have work to do. We have jobs to go to ourselves. And so we haven't got that much time. But when I give food, I'm always really, really keen to see the horse say, yes, I'm ready to go afterwards. And it can just be a flick of that ear close to you that looks at you. It could be a raise of the eye. It's almost a nostril lifting towards you. But you begin to see the signs for yourself. And in waiting for that moment, the horse starts to feel that they have some ability to control the training. Okay, it's not lots, because at the end of the day, the human is responsible for the training and the horse doesn't get to say too much. But I think it's a really lovely thing to get started looking for those signs. How does the horse say yes? And how does he say no? How does he say, I can't do this anymore, this is too much? Often we understand that one a lot better than when he says, yes, I'm ready to go. So that's just a thought anyway. So here we go with another moving turn on the another turn on the forehand. So again, you see those forelegs are not actually going anywhere. They are staying put. So I think what I'm sure I've linked to my video where I'm possibly riding it or working it in hand. So you've seen that one. But I think I potentially have a hand drawing of one, a sketch of one somebody's done. That sometimes helps people see it. Again, I tell you what, I'm going to pause and see if I can find it and put it in as part of the video. So I'll be back in a second. Okay, here we are, Anne. Here's one of my old drawings that shows how the turn on the forehand should move. So again, if we use a pen, so the horse is starting here and Anne is here. First thing that I do is think about these. And if those shoulders aren't active, so I'm not thinking right at the start of the other end. So I'm not activating here yet. First of all, I'm really thinking, how can I keep this area light and soft and a gap between me and the shoulder, and that feeling of both of our posture being up and light and lifted. Then as that starts to happen, you can see that the forehand starts to move. And in each of these, it's not just the haunches that have moved, but it's the forehand that's moved. And if you can see that these 4 feet, not the 4 feet, the 4 feet. Let me see if I can do a freehand. Oh, actually, no, I think there's an ability for me to have a... there we go. So I think what you'll find is that here we have this sort of oval pattern happening with the 4 feet, so that the 4 feet are describing this sort of oval. And I would like it to be circle, but they didn't have a circle on my drawing board there. So, but you see what I mean, that the 4 feet are not staying on one centre piece. The haunches move around the forehand, which is in itself mobile already. So number one, get your shoulders mobile. Number one, if you remember, let's get rid of that now because we've done that. Let's come in. Number one is, again, your your shoulders. Get your shoulders. Oh, it wants me to give me an over all the time there, so let's get off that one. So yeah, get the shoulder mobile. And when you feel that the horse is, lifted, not necessarily taken a step, but lifted up into that mobile shoulder feel, then you can ask the hind legs to step away. So I hope that helps a little bit, because what was happening with Lukas is that his forefeet were staying on the spot. It's not a test of how accurate you can be at staying in one place. The absolute opposite. You want those forefeet to make a small circle ultimately of about 30 centimetres. But it will always be that they step around a circle, never that they step in one place. It's definitely a movement around a circle, as you can see from this diagram. So I hope that helps. I'm going to go pop back to the video. Okay, so we're back on the video, and let's have a look at this one. So here, in fact, yes, but do you see how you're drawing him towards you? So let me just slip back a tiny amount there. Okay, so what you did was you started the exercise by drawing him to you. You yourself stepped a little away from him, and then you drew him with you. So he fell onto that left shoulder, that inside shoulder. So let's look again. And you just brought him in, and those forefeet stuck like glue. And to be fair, the left foot did start to pick up partway through it. The hind legs are fantastic, so you have got no worry there. But if you want to really make sure that this area connects, then you really need not just to think about the hind leg stepping under, but the mobility of the shoulder. And later, when this becomes a pirouette, and other, doesn't become one. When we use the pirouette, when we're moving the forehand around the quarters, you begin to see how important that mobilization of the shoulders is. So this is a way more difficult exercise than people give it credit for, believe me. So, you're not alone in finding it difficult. So, oops, sorry, I apologize. Let me just pause. So yeah, if we just look at that. So instead of you drawing him with your left hand towards you, you're thinking of moving the shoulders away from you and doing it that way. So what I'd love you to think about, let's put a halt on that one there, and let me explain some little exercises you do. So you can do a moving turn on the forehand. You were great in that last one. You didn't do it from halt. You kept him moving just slightly forwards, which was fantastic. Concentrate on the shoulders first, and drawing the forehand into you is only going to drop him onto that inside shoulder. So be careful of that. You're thinking of keeping the inside shoulder up and lifted and away from you, and then adding in the quarters. And then when you finish, walk forwards and ride a quarter turn on the haunches, or just a quarter turn if that's easier, a sort of quarter pirouette or quarter turn. And you're doing it from the outside. So the one is from the inside with the quarters going away from you, and the other one is you moving the shoulders away. And then you do a quarter turn, and then you come again into another moving turn on the forehand. It's a super exercise to give you an idea of how the shoulders feel. So I'm really looking forward to seeing you. Remind me when we do the next assessment, if that's what we do, that's the exercise you're doing, because I have a lousy memory when I look at so many horses in a month to forget. It's easy to forget what we were thinking of, but I just think that's going to be super. But I'm looking at this here, and look at this lovely balance that we're starting to get with him, where the haunches are rising up into the forehand. So the work's going to be getting better and better. It's really impressive. So well done. I'm going to have a look at the other video. I think I'm going to finish this one here and upload this separately.